Hey guys, Tiffany Ofili Porter here, where I discuss all things life after sport. You see the ambiance, you see Melissa back here in the video. This is my loctician, and this is part 8 in the Loctician Speaks series, where I bring my loctician here to kind of talk about all things Sisterlocks, answer questions, and just give insight from that professional perspective. So in this particular video, we're going to be talking about the science of Sisterlocks. So if you've ever wondered why people's hair seems to grow longer and fuller when it's locked, or you've ever wondered why some people have a certain type of grid pattern or a certain type of interlocking pattern versus others, or if why maybe you might be having complications with your Sisterlocks and or want to prevent complications if you're on your installation journey, then make sure you tune in to this video. So as we're going to be talking about the science of Sisterlocks, it got a lot of interest on the previous video that we recorded. And if you haven't seen that, I'll make sure that I'll list the whole playlist of all of my Sisterlocks content. But we mentioned that we thought it would be really cool to talk about the science of Sisterlocks. So I have here a resource that I'm going to be referring to. This is the official training workbook of Sisterlocks. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go page by page in this book because Sisterlocks as a brand is trademarked, and we want to make sure that we're giving them their due credit. So if there's anything in this video that you want to elaborate on or learn more about, make sure you just consider taking a Sisterlocks course or just going to the Sisterlocks website for more information. So Melissa, are you ready for this conversation?
Yeah, we can have it.
Let's have it. So we have this first page here as like kind of an example of the different curl patterns. And Melissa, can you go ahead and elaborate a little bit on this?
So when you start talking about when you're thinking about the science of our hair, and as far as like Sisterlocks is concerned, I mean, we can start literally with, which is what they kind of teach us when you have the Sisterlock class, is the actual anatomy of your scalp, as well as your follicle and then your shaft of hair. We're not going to go that deep, but those are, important to kind of learn so you understand how your hair is behaving. What we're going to mainly talk about is the curl patterns and what that does as far as Sisterlocks are concerned. So when you go to your loctician and you have that consultation, what she's trying to figure out is what your curl pattern is. What kind of hair do you have? That way she understands how she needs to lock your hair, because again, that's where that science part comes in, to help her understand so that it makes sure it stays in place. And not only does it stay in place, but it's actually going to lock for you so you don't start experiencing slippage. So when a loctician goes in and they start looking at your hair, they're looking for that curl pattern. So they're looking at how long it is and then how deep it is. So when you look at the length, you're thinking, is it a long length? Is it an average length? Or is it just a small one? Or you can think about the depth of it. And then that's where we can keep it on this one. So on this one, you can see where you actually have the long curl pattern. So when you think about it being long, you're only looking at it from where it bends to right there. So you know that that's a long curl pattern. Then this one, as you see, it's a little shorter. So this one would be your medium size curl pattern. And then this one right here is your short.
So Melissa, I know when you and I were talking earlier, we were talking about like the different categories that people have given to hair, like 4A, 4B, 4C. Is that kind of similar to this, or is that something that's completely different?
It's completely different. I know people like to talk about 4A, 4B, 4C, but I know some cosmetologists, some of them, I guess, believe in it and some of them don't. So I don't know how to take that issue. When you're dealing with Sisterlocks, they don't even talk about A, B, and C. Okay. They talk about the length, they talk about the depth, they talk about the stiffness, they talk about the pliability. They also talk about the cuticle. How smooth is it? How rough is it? They look at all of that. And so that's that first one. So then when you flip it and you look at it from this side, then you see those same things. So now this one, we're looking at how deep that curl pattern is. So first we was looking at the length. Now we're seeing how deep is that. So you can still have a long curl pattern, but how deep is that long curl pattern? That's what this tells us.
Wow.
So on the first one, you see this one is deep. So this first one is a long, deep. This second one would be your average deep, because as you can see, it's a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
And then of course, this last one would be your shallow, because you don't have very much, deepness. And it's the same thing when you go through each one.
Wow.
So you can see there's 9 different patterns you can have, curl patterns you can possibly have in your head.
That is just so interesting, because I think sometimes we do get very caught up on these categories. And at the end of the day, it matters if you want to have a category, but your hair is going to be what your hair is.
Mm-hmm.
And Melissa, you've talked about how at different parts of your hair, the length and the depth can be different too, right?
Correct. And it can be. So even though you have those different ones, I'll flip this back around. So you might have, at the top of your head, you might have these loose ones. And then as you start getting to the back and the more, you might start feeling, some of these, you might have 1 or 2 different curl type patterns in your head, especially when you start getting around your edges. I know my edges are a little bit looser than what they are in the middle.
Okay. So with that, do you want to go over the other, the shaft real quick, or do you want to talk about kind of how you choose what kind of interlocking process to do?
Well, that one, I won't go into too much because I don't want to give away Sisterlocs.
Fair enough.
Sisterlocs stuff.
I agree
But
with
if you do take the class, they teach you what lock pattern you are supposed to use for each one of these. They do teach you that. So that's what you learn when you take the Sisterlocs class.
Okay.
Another one thing that they do look at, this is showing your cuticles. So usually we'll pull off a strand of your hair, which is the reason why we want your hair to be loose, because we're literally going to pluck some strands of your hair out, not only to look for the curl pattern, but also to feel it so that we can see what your shaft is feeling like. So is it smooth? Is it kind of like a medium rough, or is it completely rough?
Okay.
Because this is going to tell you if you're going to experience slippage.
Oh, so somebody who has a smoother cuticle
is going to experience slippage. So again, you start thinking about what lock pattern am I going to use to prevent that person's hair from slipping.
Again, preventing complications before they even start. So someone who has a rougher cuticle, their hair is probably going to lock.
It's going to lock and stay. If it's short, so these patterns, so these types of hair right here, on this end, that deeper, short, those are going to lock more with that rough cuticle. Okay. Those are going to lock quick for you.
Okay. Now, I don't remember my loctician. She didn't discuss the intricacies with me. She won't. Because obviously, it's trademark that she knows what she was doing. She's a professional just like you. But I can just imagine, because my hair did lock so fast and my hair was so tightly coiled before I got locks, that I probably did fall into this deep and short category.
I would think so.
With a rougher cuticle.
I would think so.
It's just so interesting because you and I have talked before, Melissa, about how we have, similar looking hair. We both have Sisterlocs, but you have a looser curl pattern than what I have. And it took you a little bit longer for your hair to lock, correct?
It did.
Yeah. Do you remember how long specifically, or not really at this point?
I was probably still braiding and banding for about 2.5 years.
2.5?
Oh, because my edges are really soft.
Okay.
And I guess I get a lot of slippage around my edges. So it's mainly for my edges than it was for the center of my head.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely wasn't 2.5 for me.
Right. And another one that you want to look at is when we start talking about the pliability and the stiffness.
Okay.
The stiffness of that. And that's when you start looking at your shape.
Okay.
You won't necessarily see this, and we don't necessarily see this. We can kind of tell as we're working with your hair how pliable and how stiff it is. But again, that allows us to know what lock pattern we need to give you.
Wow. You guys, so just so you know, when you go to that consultation, I've mentioned it so many times, but
it's necessary.
In case this is your first video, as Melissa said, it is so incredibly necessary because they're doing a lot of background work to determine what the perfect lock pattern is going to be specifically for your hair. And
it's not only the lock pattern, but how we were just talking today, because Tiffany's density is high in her head, the person who installed her hair should have never made them as small as they did. They should have made them a little bit bigger for her. And it's not necessarily because of the time and stuff. I mean, that can be what we all are. But it can become complicated sometimes.
Yeah, and you kind of a spoiler, Melissa and I have kind of discussed the conversation of combining locks. And it's something that I'm deeply considering just because of how long my lock retightenings take and just some other factors. So let me know down in the comments if you would like a more detailed video on whether or not I'm going to actually combine locks, kind of what her plan is and my reasonings behind doing so. Because if I get enough interest on that video, I would definitely do a full video breaking it down and maybe even showing that appointment and what it looks like and just discussing what it means to even combine locks and how that's going to affect the way that your hair looks.
Right.
But I think that it is just so important during that consultation to just have an appreciation for what's going on behind the scenes. Because how Melissa said, when I was there, she was asking me, all these things. How's my hydration status? How are my hormone levels? How is my lifestyle?
Your activities,
my activity
all of that
levels,
matters.
How much do I sweat? And I'm over here getting a little bit like, really, woman? Put these damn locks in my head. No shade. I love my loctician, but that was honestly what was going through my head.
That's why.
And now in hindsight, I'm learning from Melissa, from a licensed, loctician, why she was going into so much detail. So when you do have that consultation or that establishment, just really respect the craft and the amount of time and work that went in to determining this art of Sisterlocks. It is here for a reason.
And I was going to, just to add to that, because I was going to kind of say that, because I know a lot of people are like, why is Sisterlocks cost so much? Or why is this, with Sisterlocks? Well, Dr. Cornwell put in a lot of research work in order to give us this, this technique for Sisterlocks. And as we've gone through all of the science that she looked into to understand what curl patterns were actually good, because she tried and failed a lot of different curl patterns. So to me, that's just another one of those reasons why you would want a branded, company, so that that what you're getting, if they follow the technique, it has been researched
and time and tested. That's the thing, that you might not necessarily have that level of covering or that level of expertise if you go to like just traditional Microlocs that don't have that Sisterlock branded, trademarked research that's backing the type of interlocking process that you're going to receive. And I just think it's very interesting as a consumer. We don't necessarily think about all these things. We're just like, I want the cheapest option. I just want my hair to look good. I know the image of what I want it to look like. But in order for you to get to that point, you need to go through these steps kind of leading up to there. So I do think that's just something to keep in mind, especially if you are considering Sisterlocks. Just do your research. I'm always here as a resource, guys. I've said it so many times that I respond to everybody in the comments. In fact, there was a woman that reached out to me and I gave her Melissa's contact information. Matter of fact, did she ever contact you, Melissa?
I have not heard from her.
Okay. But like literally, I'm here to answer questions.
But she can.
To refer people. Like if there's something that I don't know, I will literally tell you I don't know, and I might hit up Melissa like, hey, do you have the answer to this question? And she'll be able to tell me. So it's just so important to use your resources, use your community to make sure that you are making an informed decision about your hair, especially when you go drop a bag on Sisterlocks. You want them to look good.
I agree.
So kind of moving on to the conversation about why is my hair down to my back right now? Why is it so long? Why is it so full? And I've never had this type of length in the past. I've always had full hair. She's mentioned that density and it's always been thick. So that's never been my issue, but I could never retain length. So Melissa, can you talk a little bit about why people with locks have such long hair?
Okay. Yep. So again, if we were to go back and we were actually to look at the anatomy of our scalp, and then you look at the follicles, and then you look at the hair shaft. Well, we actually hydrate from inside out. And so if you're actually hydrating yourself in the proper way that it's supposed to, then you'll start having more healthier shafts. But of course, we don't hydrate the way that we're supposed to. So we do have a lot of shedding and a lot of breakage that happens. And so we have to use external moisturizers in order to try to lock that moisture into our hair. Well, when you're dealing with locks, it's not necessarily that your hair is growing. you're just locking all of that shedded hair that would have went away into place.
That's the key.
So it's not going to move. So this technically is not Tiffany's true length of her hair, not of her natural hair. So this is not her natural length. This is just her lock length. Because if she was to remove these, you would get all that shedding hair would come loose.
And I do think that's a very interesting topic, because I can imagine that being a little controversial, where somebody might look at somebody with locks and be like, it's fake. It's not really your hair. That's just all the dead hair that's in your locks. But it's like, baby, say what you want. You see the hang time. You
hear
know?
me?
So,
I don't care how I got it.
Exactly.
It's there.
It's there. It's my hair. And yes, that is one of the benefits of getting locks, is that you are going to see your hair longer than it has ever been, and growing faster than it's ever been, because we don't have crazy shedding. So when I go and wash my hair, like for example, my daughter, for instance, she's loose natural. I do her hair every week after swimming, and she doesn't get a lot of shedding because my daughter's hair is very healthy, but she sheds. Everybody sheds hair, right? When it's not locked in. And I used to shed a lot as well. It's natural. Now, when I wash my hair, when I shake and go, when I do stuff, you are not going to see hair on my floor. I don't have to sweep up every time I finish doing my hair, because
I still.
Oh, do you still have a little bit of shedding?
I still have shedding. I do.
But Melissa, would you say that it's less than what it was?
But it's a lot less than what it was.
Exactly. It's inevitably going to be less than what it was when you were a loose.
Because my hair was never this long.
You see, mine definitely. I'll try to see if I can go in like the annals of history and see if I can see. I got decent length at one point, but between, heat treating, chemical treating, color, not hydrating as well as Melissa mentioned, not using the right hair products, not caring for my hair, it would just get shorter and shorter. I can never retain length. So that was one of the things that was so attractive to me when I was considering getting locks. So I always knew, like I mentioned, volume wasn't the issue, but I always wanted that length. So that was something that I loved then, and I even loved more so now that I do have some hang time. So anybody out there who maybe is in a similar situation and you're looking for a natural way to just grow your hair and to just see your hair in its full glory, then maybe consider locks. I mean, obviously, if you're watching this video, you do have some interest in Sisterlocks in general, but just something to keep in mind. Melissa, do you ever, I don't even know if you've ever had this conversation where somebody's like, oh, that's not your real hair length, or does nobody ever talk to you about stuff like that?
No, they don't ever say that to me, but I can see people saying that, because they have asked me if my hair was real.
Yes, I get that all the time, yes.
But yeah.
Yes, where they just assume that it's like
it's
braids,
not yours.
or it's weave, or zillions, or micro braids, yeah.
I do get that.
Yeah, and then sometimes people just don't even know what they are. They're like, what is that? Are those twists? Are those braids? Are those? I'm like, no, they're Sisterlocks. I can refer you to a whole YouTube channel that talks all about them, and you can learn more. But yeah, just kind of going back, segue into the next thing about preventing complications, or kind of dealing with complications as they arrive. That's why we recommend going to a licensed loctician that knows the craft, that's going to give you the appropriate locking pattern for your hair.
Because also a lot of professionals, I don't know how many of them do that, but they do teach us when we're doing the Sisterlock class to actually have a client profile, to where we put down what your curl pattern looks like. So that long, deep, average, short, that stuff that we just went over earlier, we will write that all down on the client profile. We will write down like the condition of their scalp, because that stuff matters. We'll write out what their lifestyle is. Do they exercise a lot? Those things are that. So we'll write a whole client profile, and we keep that. So that way we know, like if you start having complications, I can go look, okay, what was her curl pattern? That way I can try to help you correct it in the appropriate way.
Actually, that's a really good question, because I'm sure there's going to be people who watch this video before they even have their consultation, and they can be armored with this information and empowered to, make an informed decision. But then there might be people who have already gotten locks and they are dealing with complications. So during your training course, they actually tell you if you're experiencing slippage, or if you're experiencing this or this or this, kind of how to rectify it. See, you see? So it's almost like when they
teach you how to repair all locks.
I love that. I love that, because it just gives you a peace of mind knowing when you're going and you're committing to, paying and, investing this time into getting Sisterlocs, it's almost like an insurance policy, especially if you're going to somebody who's going to be retightening your hair that is certified. You know that if anything happens, they're going to know what to do. Like they are professionals. They are trained behind this trademarked style. And that to me is priceless.
And for me, the only place you're going to actually find a Sisterlocs consultant is going to the sisterlocs.com website.
Yes. I had one of my former track colleagues reach out, and she's been considering getting locks. And if you're watching this video, hey girl, you know who you are. And she was like, Tiff, like, where do I even begin? I said, first of all, I sent her the directory where it listed the different locticians in her area, the trainees, the consultants, the master consultants, all the different categories that they have. And she was so grateful. She was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that this was even a thing. And I'm like, to me, it's so simple because I've had locks for so long, but this information can be useful to somebody else on their journey. So I don't know. I love the fact that you kind of have that covering when you do invest in Sisterlocs.
Right.
Now, Melissa, from a loctician's perspective, have you ever kind of, I guess I'm a prime example where you're looking at my hair and looking at my density, looking at everything, and you're like, had I been the person to install your locks, I would never have done them this small. But have you ever run into issues where it's a little bit more like a larger deal where you're like, yo, they really did not do this right?
Well, not necessarily the locks, but I've had people want to get installs who are like experiencing like severe alopecia.
Okay.
And so of course they got like big spacings and stuff in your hair. I can give you interlocks, but I can't give you Sisterlocs.
Okay.
Because you're not going to have that grid pattern. And that's just the kind of things that you have to let them know. We can still lock your hair, and give you. And there are some people that can create what you call those prosthetic pieces to where you can still have Sisterlocs.
Okay.
I'm just not one of those.
Yeah.
I'm just not one of those people. So there are other ways, to do it. And then I've had them to where one lady, I basically had to stop doing her retightenings for a while because her dandruff, it just got so bad. And so I was like, you really need to either go see a dermatologist or, just find some way to treat your hair. And then once you've had it treated, then you can come back to me. And the only reason why I say that is I would do her retightenings, but I just didn't want to do them all the way down and add that extra tension on that hair because she started losing some of her locks.
Oh, yeah. See, that's a thing. So how did that end up? Did she end up going, just finding somebody else? Did she get a...
No, she still comes to me. She went to a dermatologist and she's been getting her scalp treated.
Love it.
And so now we're not experiencing all that. I mean, like we literally had flakes on the floor, all down her shirt. Like it was horrible.
Okay.
And so now we don't have that issue anymore. But that's important. The reason why we need to look at your scalp, not only for that dryness, that dandruff, but some people might have open areas that they're suffering from, like who knows.
And to me, that honestly, Melissa, kind of speaks to your level of professionalism and your integrity, because somebody else, they're just trying to get the bag. They're trying to get paid. They're like, I don't care the nature of your scalp. You're going to pay me regardless of if there's flakes, and they might just take your money and not give you that advice to kind of get it really rectified from the inside out. So the fact that you did that and, gave her that advice, even as a nurse, to go and see.
Because I was about to say, that's probably where it came from.
Right. The best of both worlds here.
Yes, because I am a nurse and RN by trade. That's what I do.
And then she got it sorted out, and now she's probably even more of a loyal client and probably respects you even more because you took that stance where it's like, we need to figure this out together. Yeah.
And you have a lot of locticians that will do that. But to me, that's also part of making sure you select the right person.
Yes.
And then I will add, because I know I did say earlier that if they're not on the website, just to let you guys know, when locticians become certified, they do have to pay, I think it's like an annual fee in order for them to stay on that website. And if they don't, then of course they're taken off of the website. So for those individuals, so I don't want to say that all because they're not on the website, they were never trained.
Okay, yeah, that's a good distinction to make. Yeah,
I shouldn't state that because that's false. Some of them might get tired of paying for the money and just don't see the purpose of it anymore.
Yeah,
because they're getting clients word of mouth.
Right.
So I would say for those individuals that you come across that say, yes, I am a consultant, I would just ask for references.
Yes.
Ask to look at their work, see pictures.
maybe even go to their website
and actually talk to
Facebook
somebody.
page. That is a very good piece of advice, because sometimes you'll find when you relocate, for example, you go to an area and you cannot find anybody on the Sisterlocs website who is listed as being a trainee or a consultant that is taking clients, because that's a whole different conversation.
It is, because like my loctician, she ain't taking clients.
I had that issue in Cincinnati where I ended up going to a woman who I believe was certified at one point. She had her own shop and she was thriving in her business, but she wasn't on the website. And then she ended up referring me to another girl who really wasn't even Sisterlocs trained officially, but she was amazing at her craft. So sometimes that, you know, like that website can be a great place to start, but like Melissa said, it's not the only way for you to find somebody who's going to be licensed and great to do your hair, and that even vibes with your personality, because sometimes that's something to consider as well when you're looking for a loctician.
All of it matters. You want to make sure you get somebody who's knowledgeable, know what they're doing, follows the technique. Then, like you say, you gel with them.
100%.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm going to add one more thing.
Yes, please do.
And the only reason why is because I saw a video and they were talking about how locks are not permanent hairstyles. Right.
I've never heard that before.
That's the reason why I had to bring this up. And the reason why she was saying that, and I think a lot of people start getting confused when they're doing research for locks, that there is a huge difference in the maintenance and the technique for Microlocs, which Sisterlocs is a form of Microlocs, and traditional locks. So for me, what she was speaking to is because she was talking about the tension, because people do start experiencing tension alopecia when they're dealing with those traditional locks, because they get their hair retightened so often.
Okay.
But you know, with us, we have to get our hair retightened so often because we're interlocking.
Yes.
And then our locks are tinier, so we don't get as much. We still get tension, but it's not as much tension.
That is such a good point to make, because first of all, I never even knew that people were having those types of conversations. But again, people see locks, they just assume traditional locks, Microlocs, Sisterlocs, they're all the same. But no, there is a distinction for a reason. And like Melissa said, if you have somebody who knows what they're doing and you are maintaining those Sisterlock retightening appointments, by the way, it's there every 4 to 6 weeks as a general recommendation in case you didn't know that, then they can be a permanent hairstyle, especially if you're maintaining them appropriately, and do not always lump them in the same category with your traditional locks or dreadlocks, because they're different.
You maintain them very differently, because you'll hear people with traditional locks, oh, I get retwist twice a year, 3 times. There's no way we can do that.
Your hair would fall out.
It would fall out.
100%.
We're the opposite.
Yes. Yes. And actually, that's another thing to consider. I don't want this video to get too long, but if you're looking for like a style, like a form of locks that are extremely low maintenance, where you're going only twice a year, like Melissa said, then Sisterlocs are not for you. Do not even
consider it.
It's not, because you have to go every 4 to 6 weeks, and you have to commit to doing so for the duration of your hair.
And you got to stay on schedule, because if you're not, then your loctician ain't gonna feel you.
Exactly. She's gonna be like, you want to be here for 16 hours doing this retirement? Absolutely not.
Because it takes us longer. The longer you wait, the longer it takes us to get your installment.
Man.
Because that's all new growth.
All new growth that has to be re-interlocked to the existing lock. Man, this was a great conversation. Let me know down in the comments, guys, if you want us to elaborate more on maybe the shape of hair strands or the length, like Melissa talked about, or the, what was the other one, density?
Well, it was the length, the depth.
The depth, which these are all new terms to me, and I've had Sisterlocs since 2018. So I really think this conversation was very interesting. And let me know what you just think about the video altogether. Give Melissa a thumbs up for being here and providing us with all of this knowledge. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.